been some talk of it. They may very well try to, stop the count in a state like Pennsylvania. It is a complete fool's errand. Those votes will be counted. Let me tell you tonight, those votes will be counted. We'll see whether they try it. But if they try it, it will be one of the most clumsy, doomed to failure legal initiatives I've seen in my entire career.
Donald Trump can tweet and he can pout and he can make whatever statements he wants to make. But this election will not be over here in Pennsylvania. A winner will not be declared until we can deduce the will of the people. And that will happen after all of those ballots are counted.
Joe Biden's top legal advisor and even the Pennsylvania Attorney General saying they are prepared and confident that all votes will be counted and that any more desperate legal attempts put up by the Republicans to throw out ballots will fail. A desperate Trump, angered by the possibility of waiting to hear his own fate because of the unprecedented amount of mail-in ballots during a pandemic, spiraled out of control under his leadership, has warned his lawyers are ready to go as soon as the election is over, as both campaigns brace for intensified battles for in-place states. The New York Times reports this, quote, in his last days of campaigning, Mr. Trump has essentially admitted that he does not expect to win without going to court. Trump in that moment said out loud what other Republicans have preferred to say quietly, which is that his best chance of holding on to power at this point may rest in a scorched earth campaign to disqualify as many votes as possible for his Democratic opponent. Let's bring into this conversation our friend Jeremy Bash, former chief of staff at the CIA and the Department of Defense and an MSNBC national security contributor, and Peter Baker, New York Times chief White House correspondent and MSNBC political analyst, whose byline is one of those on that reporting we just read from. Peter, let me start with the reporting. It's a remarkable piece on the front page of today's New York Times on Election Day in America, and it really is as sort of meta as you can get. Donald Trump, who doesn't expect to win based on the vote count, plans to go to court.
Well, he said at the rally the other day, he says, as soon as the polls are closed, I'm sending our lawyers in. That is somebody who does not sound confident, obviously, that he's going to win on the basis of the counts as they are currently going to be processed. And he's looking to change the rules in a way to prevent votes that presumably will favor his opponent from being counted. Now, he's already railing against the Supreme Court for allowing Pennsylvania to, in keeping with its own procedures, to count ballots that were mailed in by today but arrive after today for 3 days. He's got a lot of other, lawyers looking at other state rules around the country for possible challenges if those become available. Now all of this may be moot if the numbers are pretty decisive. But if there are states where the count is close, where these kinds of tactics might make a difference, you could expect to see lawyers challenge them as they have in Texas. Now, they may not succeed. Bob Bauer from the Biden campaign, who you just showed, may be right. But even if they don't succeed, there is a consequence to this. The consequence, of course, being to sow suspicion and muddy the waters for an election defeat, to give, first of all, voters a reason why he was defeated, which is to say that it was a rigged election, he was cheated, and also with the consequence of undercutting, I think, public faith in the democratic system that has been the bedrock of this country now for more than 2 centuries.
Jeremy, if I hold my breath until my brain's deprived of oxygen and try to see the world the way Donald Trump does, you can see his exasperation, right? So he's stacked the Supreme Court. He's been telling his voters for months that the election, if he loses, is rigged. If he wins, it's hunky-dory. But if he loses, it's been rigged. And now he finds himself really seeing this race, it would appear, the same way the Biden campaign does, as being a near impossible or an extremely difficult path to 270 if you play fair and square. It strikes me, and I'm thinking of this interview I did with a golf writer who talked about how Donald Trump cheats at golf. It would seem that no matter what happens, if Donald Trump wins the way Donald Trump thinks the only way he can win, it would appear, by cheating through legal action, it will again be this constant echo of the Trump presidency that he needs to cheat to prevail.
Yeah, and the cheating is on so many levels. He claims he won golf tournaments he never even played in. But Nicole, if I recall correctly, you and I first met 20 years ago around the Florida recount. And obviously since then, there's been such a hyper-focus on what happens when there are controversies around elections. But I want to make clear that, first of all, if you're listening right now or you're watching or you're going to be heading out to the polls after work. Stay in line. Your vote will count. At the end of the day, the state authorities will make sure that every vote that comes in will be processed and counted, notwithstanding whatever Donald Trump and his legal henchmen claim. By the way, it's not just that they're going to rush into the courthouse after voting closes. They're already there. A story just broke in the last hour out of Nevada, out of Clark County, where the Trump campaign has already sued to try to invalidate mail-in ballots. And we know that the Trump campaign has been trying to do the same thing in Pennsylvania. And by the way, they have lost every single lawsuit they have filed. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court, for example, has said very clearly, very unambiguously, and of course the U.S. Supreme Court has kept that rule in place, that any vote, any ballot that comes in over the next 3 days, if it's mailed by the end of today, if it's postmarked by today, will be counted.
Peter, you've covered a lot of presidents and you covered this one. I wonder what you think of the tone he struck on Fox and Friends, attacking Brian Kilmeade and his co-anchors for not being the Fox of 4 years ago.
Yeah, look, anybody who in any way disappoints him, no matter how supportive of they have been, is going to incur his wrath. And what's really striking, of course, to see it on Fox and Friends, because really there's been no single television show that have been more important to the rise of President Trump, at least politically, right? Maybe you could say The Apprentice, but the truth is, when he got started on his quest for the presidency, the place he did it was Fox and Friends, the place he was calling into week after week after week, really sort of put him in touch with conservative Fox voters, was the Fox and Friends show. So for him to sort of lash out a little bit, I think, indicates some frustration. I was also struck by his comments at his headquarters today, where he kind of ruminated on whether or not he might lose. He says, winning is easy, losing is hard, especially for me. That suggests to me somebody who is aware that he may not, in fact, come out again the way he did 4 years ago when he won that sort of inside straight of an election by capturing the Electoral College but not the popular vote.
Jeremy, let me give you the last word on just what the rhetoric out of the president looks like from foreign capitals. I mean, to see a president talking and the New York Times reporting on the front page of their newspaper that the president recognizes that he doesn't necessarily have a political path to victory but is pursuing a legal one. How does that look?
Well, Nicole, in our entire history, we've had peaceful transfers of power, and a presidential election is the crown jewel of our democracy. And we go around the world and we talk to foreign leaders, countries, both friends and foes. We oftentimes talk about our presidential elections, our peaceful transfers of power. And for a president of the United States, the symbol of America, for better or for worse, to sort of denigrate the values, the norms, the idea that we could have a lawful election, a peaceful transfer of power, I think just shows you how much American power has been undermined by what President Trump has done. And we're going to find it's going to be very difficult to achieve our objectives on a global stage if President Trump is reelected or if he has his way about how the next day or the next several weeks go.
Jeremy Bash, Peter Baker, I know one thing for sure, no matter what happens tonight, we will be calling on both of you to talk us through it early and often. Thank you both for making time for us today. Up next for us, we'll get a sense of the fork in the road. These candidates are out with just a few hours until polls close on this election day 2020. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.